Hi, I'm Pamela, and welcome to Greenstick Cottage, where I read and listen to books whenever the cats allow me to. And this is going to be a BookTube video, and I have finished a few books, 7 since the last time. The first of those is Bust Hell Wide Open, The Life of Nathan Bedford Forrest by Samuel W. Mitchum Jr., and that was a listen, and it was very good. I can't remember who the narrator was, but he was very good, and the whole story was a great portrait of a person that became well known and prominent in the history of the war between the states. And it also covered his life after the war, well, before the war, obviously, and after the war, because it starts with his parents and when he was born and siblings and things like that. And then, sadly, he died of a disease that he probably would not die of today. So, or would be much, less of a chance of that. And, so anyway, I enjoyed the book. I thought it was good. I enjoyed hearing about the different battles and how things went. And I thought Mitchum did a really good job telling the history of that of this lifetime. So I liked that one. And the second book I finished was Evelina. The full title is Or the History of a Young Lady's Entrance into the World, I think is what it is, by Frances Burney. And this was written in, I think it was the 1780s. And so it always surprises me when I read older books like this that are so, they are so well, remind me, of so many things. It doesn't seem that long ago, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is people just weren't that different, I guess, back then. And so there's humor in there, there's, I was kind of shocked by some of the lack of manners. I always thought that this time frame of the 18th century would be so, everyone would be so, kind and polite and, manners and etiquette and all that. And there were some characters that were not that way at all. But it was very entertaining. It is told in the form of letters. It's an epistolary novel. And Frances Burney apparently was an influence on Jane Austen, or at least she enjoyed reading Frances Burney's writings. And so that added an extra layer of enjoyment for me. And thinking about Jane Austen reading this book. And so I enjoyed it as well. So great book. That was Evelina. And that was also a listen. And so I guess maybe because I was listening, the whole letter aspect of it didn't seem as prominent to me, because even though it had different voices narrating the letters, male voice from male, and it just seemed so present, like like all these events are actually happening as the story's being told. So it might feel different if I had read it in print or digitally and seen the letter format more. And the next one was also a listen, and that is True Grit by Charles Portis. This was narrated by Donna Tartt, the author of The Goldfinch, a book I greatly enjoyed. And she was great at narrating this first person, as told by Maddie, I can't remember her last name, but anyway, Maddie Ross. Okay, and it tells the story of her contracting Rooster Cogburn for, and he's a U.S. Marshal, and she wants him to bring someone to justice and to find him and bring him to justice. And so it chronicles that whole event in her life. And she was a 14-year-old girl. So it's a 14-year-old girl telling the story in first person. Very entertaining, very well done by Donna Tartt. And I have never seen the movie True Grit, so this was all new to me. And I do remember seeing like previews or something with John Wayne in them. And so I kind of pictured John Wayne, I guess, when I pictured Rooster. So anyway, great book. Enjoyed it very much. And so the next one was a read, not a listen, and that is Weyward by Amelia Hart. And this book won 2 of the Goodreads Choice Awards. It won for historical fiction, and it won for debut novel. Now, excuse me, I can totally see it winning for debut novel. However, it did not read as historical fiction to me as much as it was magical realism. Now, I love magical realism, so that did not detract at all for me from my enjoyment for this book. And it is told in a triple timeline fashion, which is kind of where the history comes in. One timeline is 1619, and this all takes place in England. And the second timeline is 1942, and the third timeline is present day. And or present day, I guess, when she was writing the book, but very contemporary. And so they were all good. They didn't really, the timelines, I enjoyed rotating through the timelines. However, they didn't really focus on history in a way that I'm used to in historical fiction. Apparently in 1619 in King James England, there were, witch trials and horrible things done, but that was not really elaborated upon, and so and that's what I was expecting. But it didn't diminish my enjoyment. And the second timeline of 1942 was taking place during World War II, and one of the characters is in the military, but that's pretty much all it's very, very much, the war itself is not really any more apparent in the narrative than that. But anyway, it basically takes place in the same place in England, and I'm not exactly sure where that is. I should have paid more attention to that. But all 3 of these timelines are taking place in the same geographical location, which makes it very interesting. So, again, loved that book. Great book, Weyward by Amelia Hart. And the next one I checked out from the library in one of my favorite Dewey Decimal System locations, the 746 numbers. And this was Knit Your Own Cat by Sally Muir and Joanna Osborne. And so this features 16 different knitting patterns for cats that look pretty realistic, at least the models. I wish I had the book still. I had to return it to the library, but I wish I had it so I could show the photographs that were great. I've decided if I visit this book again, it will be to knit the Bengal cat. They have Persians, street cats, more exotic breeds, in which, that section is where the Bengal is. I have wanted a Bengal purebred cat for, the first time I ever saw one, I wanted one, and I still do. Beautiful green eyes. They're just gorgeous, but they're very expensive, I understand. So the chances of me ever having a flesh and blood Bengal cat is pretty low, but I could knit myself one. And the great thing about the patterns is that you can knit them in different positions, like standing or hunting, and with a pipe cleaner in the tail, you can bend the tail however you want. And they've also got a pattern for when it's lying down curled up with its, tail curled all around its body and, sleeping. And it's so cute. There's even kittens in it that you can knit in the book. So love that book as well. So great craft book. And the next book I finished, and this was a read, not a listen, just like Knit Your Own Cat was a read. This was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And it missed being a great book for me because of the political agenda, the little political agenda bombs being dropped in here and there. Also, 2 full chapters of erotica. And that's all it is, And so this has long been a complaint of mine when it comes. Now, this book, Fourth Wing, it's the first in the Empyrean series. And I think the second book, Iron Flame, has already come out, has been released. And this is about a military training facility for dragon riders. And so this won the Goodreads Choice Award for romantasy. So it's a fantasy book with romance in it. And this has long been a complaint of mine, that romance as a genre has pretty much, it's not what it used to be. Let's put it that way. It it's more of a mashup of erotica and romance, and put under, in my feeling, is put deceptively under the title of romance, because I'll still fall for it when I see it's a romance, and I'll grab up a book and I'll start reading it, and then I'll get to a chapter that's nothing but, very graphic erotica. And if that's what I wanted to read, I would have, gotten a book in that genre, erotica. But that's not what I'm looking for when I want to read a fantasy about dragon riders in this fictional fantasy world. And I want to be in a whole different world where, sure, those things can take place, but please put them behind closed doors so I can enjoy the main part of the story with the dragons. I loved that, so maybe 95% of the book I absolutely loved, but it got ruined for me with the other parts. And, I won't be... the Empyrean will have to go on without me. I'm sure I'm sure she'll make plenty of money off the whole series, however many she decides to write. And it actually made me very sad when I got to the acknowledgments, and her first sentence of the acknowledgments was for her Heavenly Father. And I'm thinking, well, it must be a different one than the one I know. So, anyway, I guess I'll leave that there. And very sad. That really saddened me because, like I said, I love the book otherwise, with those exceptions. And the final book I finished was the Hebrew Bible, which was translated and had commentary by Robert Alter. And it was good. I was listening to it using it's a listen, and Fourth Wing, if I didn't mention, that was a read. I read both. I kind of went back, started with the digital and then finished with the print book. So, but with the Hebrew Bible, that was a listen. And the translation was okay, and I was using the As It Happened reading plan in the YouVersion app, which is a chronological order reading plan. And so there was, as with every chronological reading plan I've ever tried, there's a lot of jumping around. The thing I appreciated about the Audible version of the Hebrew Bible is that they have the chapters divided the same way as the book itself. So the Hebrew Bible is in a different, the books of the Old Testament, or the Tanakh, which is an anagram for Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, or, the instructions, the prophets, and the writings. So but a lot of people call it the Old Testament. I see the scriptures as one body of work, not an old and a new. So I was familiar with the Tanakh order of the books, which does begin in Genesis but ends in 2nd Chronicles. And so it's in order. So you have, the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, also, by their Hebrew names, which is a little different. And those first 5 books are Torah, and then you have all the major and minor prophets. And secondly, and then the final section is the writings, which includes Psalms, Proverbs, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and Ezra and Nehemiah. And so I appreciated that order, and it was even more orderly with the chronological sequence. And I loved that the chapters were in this proper order, so that when I'm looking at the app, As It Happened from YouVersion, I can easily, if it tells me to do, like Job 23 or whatever, I can easily scroll up and down through the chapters and get to the chapter. And so I could jump around just like I could in a print book. So good for Audible for doing it that way. So I really appreciated that. But I finally got to the end, and when did I start that? I can't remember when it started, but it was last year sometime. May, I think, of last year. And so now I'm still continuing with the As It Happened chronological reading plan, but now I'm in, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and jumping around between those. And unfortunately, that I'm listening to the New Testament by David Cochran Heath narrating. And unfortunately, Audible did not do the chapters properly. It's just 1 through whatever. So I got out my handy Dollar Tree King James Bible, and I thought, I wonder if they're in order like that, so like there's 28 chapters in Matthew, so maybe chapter 29 is Mark. Sure enough, it was. So now I have bookmarks. I've put in bookmarks on my Audible version of the New Testament, and so now I can navigate a little bit better, at least through the 4 Gospels. So we'll see how that goes. And but I just recently started that. But the Hebrew Bible, the only thing I did, the commentaries in some cases were very good, and I learned a lot of new information that I did not know. But also there was kind of a vibe, like he was like he didn't see it as divine literature. Like it, he was just very focused on, well, it obviously has 4 writers, not 1, or whatever, and he'd be very intellectually kind of condescending, I guess, in a way. And anyway, that's the way commentaries are a lot of times. So I just took it that way and enjoyed the text itself. So that was pretty good. So those are all my finished reads. And so what I'm currently reading, other than the New Testament, well, that's a listen, listening to the New Testament in the mornings. And another morning listen is the Charisma Myth, which is by, what is her name? Olivia Fox Cabane. And it's basically, I think it's called the Charisma Myth because I guess the myth about charisma is that you're born with it. You either have it or you don't. Well, her contention and the reason for the book is that this is a skill that you can learn. And to me, it's basically about, it's coming across to me like it's just basically being a better listener, being a more pleasant person to be around, somebody that people would want to hang out with. She starts off the book, and the 3 guiding principles, or the 3 foundational things for charisma, according to her, are confidence, power, it's presence, not confidence. Presence, power, and warmth. And she proceeds to teach you skills to emanate presence, power, and warmth. And how to get your mind off things like if you're at a, lunch meeting and the sun is in your face, how to get there first and, put yourself in a position where that won't be bothering you. Because a lot of times, what is most interesting about the book is the studies that have been done that have found how deep first impressions are, or how people will take, if you exhibit discomfort, say you're wearing something that you realize now you shouldn't have worn because it was uncomfortable, people will tend to interpret that you're uncomfortable with them. And same with first impressions. They will, it does matter. Clothes matter, and your body language matters far more than your words, according to her in this book. And it's super interesting. I'm really liking, but again, it seems like every time I get a book like this on Audible, and this one I got a long time ago, and I'm just now finally listening to it. And I realize that, I must have bought this before I figured out that nonfiction teaching type books like this are better in paper form, or even digital form, so that I can, and for me to own it, so I could go at my own pace, take notes, and really study. It's basically a book to study. She has exercises in there for you to do and things, and I miss out on a lot of that with the audio book. So I don't remember how long ago I figured that out. I have had an Audible membership for 12 years, I think. So, but at some point I did figure that out, and I tried to focus my Audible purchases on more fiction, or history is okay, for nonfiction. But anything that involves self-improvement, I discovered that with Atomic Habits, that was better in paper form and for me to own it. And so I will probably be on the lookout for a copy of the Charisma Myth, because I do like the whole idea of it, and I thought a lot of the exercises and the realizations about different things, they could help you in so many situations I think a lot of it is aimed toward business people, maybe, or just people in the professional world. But as a retired person, you're still meeting people, and it helps to feel more comfortable in social situations. I could see these things helping me, and maybe I won't stammer so much when I'm doing BookTube videos or something. So I'm going to try to learn as much as I can from her. And so I'm enjoying that listen. And then my current read right now is Baron and Luthien by J.R.R. Tolkien. And this is all put together by his son Christopher. She's riding on a dog there. At first I thought it was a horse, and then I looked closer. I thought, that looks like a dog or a wolf or something. Anyway, and this is I guess it's kind of lost on me, this one. I enjoyed The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy very much, but I've only read and or listened to them once. I mean, I haven't read them repeatedly or listened to them repeatedly. I have not read or listened to the Silmarillion, if that's how you say that word. I have probably most of my knowledge comes from the movies, even more than the books. And so I was pretty lost. The preface is the first 25 pages in this book, and I was pretty lost through that whole part where I guess it's Christopher Tolkien bringing in all these elements and explaining things, but I just got more and more confused because so many characters, I guess, and it finally explains some of my confusion with the Lord of the Rings, and like people, places, and things have more than one name, oftentimes, if not most of the time. But from what I gather so far, and I'm at least into the story of Beren and Luthien. I'm on page 93 of 288 pages. So, maybe about a third into the book. And at least the story itself reads like a fairy tale, so it's enjoyable from that perspective. And of course, Luthien has a different name in the first story. So the best I can gather is that this is a gathering of writings that were put together posthumously after J.R.R. Tolkien had died, and so that and it's trying to bring it all together and show where the interconnectedness of these different writings. And so I've been through the first story, I guess, and in this story, Luthien is Tinuviel, is the name, and Luthien is not used in this. And then, anyway, and so then it's going to go on to a different source of the writing, and I don't know what I'll learn next, but just as a fairy tale, it was fine so far, and I can see there's like some poetry. You can see some of this, in poetic form, and so it's due soon. Back at the library, it needs to go back to the library. If I can't renew it, like with Weyward, Weyward and Fourth Wing, I had to return and then, put on hold again and get it back. And, I had to do kind of a piecemeal reading. But I'm not sure I like this enough to wait for it again if I have to return it and I can't renew it. So if I can renew it on the day it's due, I will continue and I will finish it. If I cannot renew it when it's due, I'll just let it go and because that was the next thing I was going to talk about, is that while I love the library, it puts me in a zone where I am, racing against time, or at least I feel like I am. I feel there's a due date and I have to get this read by this due date, and I think it influences, it makes reading less relaxing for me. So after I return that book, I'm going to take a break from library books for a while, because I have several books I have started and set aside, and they've been on the back burner all this time, books that I own, and they've been on the back burner while I'm reading library books. Now, I do want to get back to the Powder Mage trilogy, and I finished the first one, Promise of Blood, and the next one is the Crimson Campaign, and I do want to continue that series, but I think I'm even going to take a break from that and focus on books I own and have already started reading, and try to finish all the ones that were in progress and have been hibernating while I've been dilly-dallying with the library books. And so I'm going to, I think the first one I'm going to try to finish, and I don't have it pulled up or anything, but it's on my Kindle, and it's Those Damned Rebels by Michael Pearson. And I'll put the picture up here. Anyway, I love this book. I love it. And I have read it a few times when I have taken, because my Kindle is easier to take with me to the doctor's office than a big library book. So I have taken it with me and read a chapter here and there while waiting at the doctor's office, and I just love it. I guess I just love history, and so Those Damned Rebels is about the war between the colonists and King George in England, and so we're up to 1770. I'm up to 1776 now, and I think they've already done the Declaration, but I didn't realize there were so many battles prior to that, that really started in 1774, I think. I think the hostilities really, at least by 1775, and so now we're really in the thick of it. And the rest of the title of Those Damned Rebels is the American Revolution from the British perspective. So I don't know if Pearson, the author himself, I haven't figured out or found out if he's British or American. He does use, so this is a history book, it's not historical fiction, and he does use resources from both places, from England and from American sources. But it seems like he has more, there are more primary resources from Britain, because they kept records, and they were a well-established empire when this was going on, so they had good offices and everything for keeping records, and all the military records, the diaries of soldiers and sailors, and so there's some like that on the American side. There's some letters and diaries and things, but at that point in time there was no well-established government to archive things and all that. So but it's he's willing to use both sources, and then like if it's a description of a battle, he'll include footnotes and say, well, this says this, but over here so and so says this, and I think it's most likely it was this. And sometimes he comes up with something in the middle that other sources say that this is how they brought artillery and horses and animals ashore. And this is talking about Long Island when they the British come to Long Island, and Oh man, it's great. I love it. So that's probably what I will read and stick to till the end. I hope, after whatever happens with Baron and Luthien happens. So and then other than that, I've been enjoying reading magazines, and I have purchased I used to subscribe to this one, Better Homes and Gardens, American Patchwork and Quilting, and so I'm looking forward to this one. Of course, I love the quilt on the cover, gorgeous, and so I'm looking forward to relaxing and just perusing my magazines. And this one is called Just Cross Stitch. And some of my FlossTube friends are featured in this issue when the editorial team discovered FlossTube, and so that was exciting. So I had to have this issue for that reason, but I also found many things I want to make in this issue. So many things I want to stitch. So thankfully, it has the last page where it shows all the projects in the magazine. So that one is great. I sent off the subscription card so I can. I originally looked at this on Libby, the Libby version, and that's when I knew for sure I wanted my own paper version. So I went ahead and subscribed, really, to all three of these, and. But this was the first one I subscribed to. I just knew I would love this magazine. So the magazine section of Libby is great for previewing magazines you might want to subscribe to. At least that's the way it worked for me. And I could not walk away from this one, Quilter's World, in the newsstand at one of the grocery stores I go to because of this quilt. So when I get my sewing room set up and I can start quilting again, piecing first, this is one that I want to start. This is the first full-size quilt I want to do. And then they just started a new series, this Prairie Star that it advertises on the cover there. And when I got to that one, I was like, oh, I got to make that one too. I indulge in all kinds of dreaming, and whether it ever happens or not, I get the excitement of the anticipation and just looking at the pictures, if I can ever find that one. That one was gorgeous. The Prairie Star. There it is. So let's see if I can not give away any of the... But anyway, that one is just gorgeous. So part one of this quilt is in here. So this might, getting these magazines and reading these magazines before I go to sleep at night, will penetrate my subconscious, I hope, and light a fire under me to get my sewing room set up and get busy. And so that's what I've got going on. And anyway, I love reading the articles in magazines and looking at I even like looking at the ads, because I might find something I didn't know that there was out there that's a great tool for me to use in my needleworking or something. So you just never know. So that's my reading life, reading and listening life so far. And thank you for, at least up to this point. And thank you for watching, and I hope you're reading something wonderful too. Bye-bye.